Welcome back to the Red Talk podcast. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are watching this episode in the world. My name is Af. This is the show where we do news, reviews, interviews, analysis about the club that we love so dearly, Manchester United. And tonight, I am joined by, he's not a stranger to the channel at all. He's been here with us on 343 a few times. But welcome back to the channel, John Shin. Good vibes, John.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. It's been a minute. I know we've talked about trying to get this going for a while now. Just been super swamped with all this crazy scheduling and whatnot. I don't know what sort of your day to day is, but if anybody's out there that wants to do content, I recommend you do it when you still live with your parents, when you don't have bills to pay, because I'm doing this all the while having a 9 to 5 job, and it is tiring. It is a lot, but it's been awesome, man. And can't wait to get started today.
Nah, I love that, dude. And yeah, I feel you, man. Like I work a 9 to 5 as well. I do some work for Agents of Fandom who are in the US as well.
Mm.
So I'll do like shows with them and reviews with them as well, and then the things here are over at Sportycast as well. So it's literally event after event on my end as well, just trying to get things going. But we love this, man. We love doing this. We love content creating, and we love all of these topics that we sort of represent. But we are not going to get into an icebreaker today because John has been on this channel before, so
Mm.
he gets to skip that segment, and we'll dive straight into the review of Manchester United versus Burnley yesterday. And man, that I don't know how many times I just had to stop and catch my breath. I don't know about you. I popped into your live stream every now and then yesterday, and you were going through the motions, man. Talk me through it.
Yeah, no, it was a lot. And yesterday's stream was very. What's the word I want to use here? On edge is probably the best way to describe it, because obviously we were all on edge as Manchester United fans, with the pressures that's been mounting on us this season. But for me, on a personal level, as a content creator and a lover of football and Manchester United, the past, I'd say 2 years has been quite tough. Especially coming from a place of trying to speak about things on a more quote unquote rational level and not being overly emotional, because I am, at the end of the day, quite emotional. So I try to, maintain that level to a relative extent. And it's been tough. And I think that game against Burnley yesterday probably explained everything there needs to know about Manchester United as a collective, from the players to the squad and all that to the fans. My emotional highs were just as bad as, or just as sort of quantifiably magnanimous as my emotional lows. The ups and downs was insane. And when all was done, when the final whistle went and the dust settled, the only word that I can use is probably relief. And I'm sure many Man United fans can relate to that, because at the end of the day, all we want right now is just 3 points. We're not asking for more, just 3 points. And I was just glad.
Yeah, no, hundreds. I completely agree. Even though I think at halftime we should have been comfortably sitting on a six goal lead or some nonsense like that. I mean, we absolutely dominated that first half, and you have Scott Parker coming out at the end saying that Manchester United will be just fine. They look really good, and he didn't have anything bad to say about how we performed in that first half. I think the the combination of players that Ruben Amorim set out, and he he sort of caught Burnley and everybody else out by having Diallo over on left wing back,
Mm.
because obviously people are going to sort of prepare for Patrick Dogu, Diego Leon, Luke Shaw, somebody with a left foot coming in and just working that left wing back spot. But Diego Dallo, he added an extra sort of dimension to that play, and a lot of our sort of offensive parts came off that left wing spot, and he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was in the top 5 rated players in the game yesterday. So yeah, that contribution from left wing back, I don't think it should be ignored.
No, it shouldn't be ignored. And I think Diogo Dallo, the positives to that game yesterday was when Diogo Dallo is on it, he is great. Like he is up there.
Yeah,
Like you saw how incredible he was going up, contributing. I think he was the one that assisted Brian Mbumo's goal. He
yeah,
bursted that run, cut back, crossed, perfect cross, placed it on a platter for Mbumo. And I think towards the end of the game, he also had a lung busting run to make that defensive challenge, and he was up there, like the grit of the teeth, like fighting, and those are the positives of Diogo Dallo, and that's why I'll always have time for Diogo Dallo. But on the flip side of things, while we can talk about the positives, I think it shouldn't go unsaid the negatives that we saw of Diogo Dallo yesterday. For me personally, I thought he had a. Don't get me wrong. If we're looking at it from the overall perspective, I thought he had a great game, but from the optics standpoint, when we're looking at the little details, for example, the goal that we conceded, I can't remember if it was the first or the second, where that
it
cross came
was
in.
the first one. Yeah,
Diogo Dallo, for me, from what I saw, at least my opinion, he definitely should have had a little bit more of the impetus or the urgency to close that gap between himself, who is the furthest leftmost player, and the
yeah,
Burnley player who was delivering the cross. I can't remember the name, but he needs to close that gap as soon as possible. I don't know if this is, again, I'm not a coach. I said in my video, I don't have UEFA licenses. I'm not a coach. So I have no idea if Ruben Amorim is instructing him to let him cross because his crossing is, poo-poo. And he's just like, yo, give him the space. We just worry about the people in the box. I don't know if that's the instruction, but from what I could see in that moment, Dallo has to close that gap. He has to step up. We can't make opposition players have a fun time crossing. It's not a practice session. They need to make the crossing difficult for the opposition. When we're on the opposite ends, our players have a hard time crossing because the players come crashing into them, and it's like really difficult. Like you have to squeeze every ounce of their strength to try and put in a cross. But those kind of moments cannot happen, and Diogo Dallo cannot be jogging over there. And like I said, the irony of it all is that he jogs over, allows the cross to come in, the goal goes in, and then literally, as fans are upset about the situation, he's on the other end delivering a sensational assist. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that United fans want to see, the consistency. Diogo Dallo would have had a 10 out of 10 performance if it weren't for little moments like that, in my view. And don't get me wrong, we're not sitting here saying everything's roses, because last season we saw sometimes how poor or ineffective Diogo Dallo can be on that left wing back side. And I can see that he can be impactful on the left. He just needs to find that consistency.
Yeah, I agree, and I think a lot of it comes from there being this like really dark cloud just hanging over Manchester United at the moment, that every single move is scrutinized, and the players are trying to deal with it as best as they can, and hopefully this 3 points sort of takes some of that pressure off of them. And I know like the next match is Man City, but it seems like our guys they're always pumping themselves up and amping themselves up for the bigger games anyway. I mean, like that performance against Arsenal in the first game of the season, they played really well. They were unlucky not to come home with anything in that game. So they pump themselves up for the bigger games. So hopefully that sort of motivates them and alleviates some of that pressure as well, in a sense. Another guy that I want to speak about, and this is your guy, you love him so much, Mason Mount. And in that first half, I think everything was happening because of Mason Mount. I think he was that central cog in that team during that 45 minutes. And it's just so sad because the word that's coming out is that he's down with another injury now. He was substituted at halftime because of an injury. Kobbie Mainoo came on. All of us wanted to see Kobbie Mainoo come on. But before we get to Kobbie, let's just talk about Mason Mount a bit. And I mean, this dude is so unlucky, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we at least for now, even Ruben Amorim said it himself. I don't think we know to the full extent of what actually went down. If I'm not mistaken, I think he also said something about like a precautionary measure. So I'm hoping and praying that it's nothing too serious. But you can see it when he has a few games under his belt, when the rhythm starts building. You can clearly see, so many people are like, oh, Mason, we need Mason Mount for his industry, and 100% I agree. But people forget that when you used to watch Mason Mount play for Chelsea, it's also his footballing IQ. There's a very high level of intelligence in his off-ball movement. It's his situational awareness that, for me, elevates his qualities to that level, to that next level as a quality elite footballer. And Yeah, you would love to see Benjamin Šeško start, of course, but if Mason Mount needs to start alongside Cunha and Mbuma, whether as a left 10 or a false 9 or whatever it may be, you can trust Mason Mount to at least be effective to some relative degree. And Ruben Amorim clearly does so. He speaks quite often about how, and he's very openly expressive of his love for Mason Mount. And that's not just me. People know that I interviewed Mason Mount, and I'm super grateful because he gave me the time. He's one of the first Manchester United active players to give me that time, and I'll always be grateful. But bias or not, at the end of the day, when you're watching him, you can clearly see that there is that level of intelligence. And if you watch him play for Chelsea, it was the same, and he's showing that now. He just needs a bit of rhythm and game time, and I just hope and pray that it's nothing too serious. And I think that this international break can give us a little bit more of that leverage, the breathing room for him to for us to assess the situation, and hopefully, so that he's not missing too many games if he does miss any.
Yeah, because I mean the guy's building some momentum now as well. He's been having some good performances so far this season, and I would hate for that to be disrupted and for him to start back at square one again. But on the flip side, this sort of opens the door, in a sense, to Kobbie Mainoo, and all the noise on the outside is that he wants game time. It's a World Cup year. He's trying to push for a loan transfer. He doesn't want to permanently move away from Manchester United because he loves the club. He wants to stay at the club, but he wants regular game time. Matheus Cunha also got injured in yesterday's game. So those are two players who Kobbie Mainoo can come in and try to get that game time that he so wants so badly. What is your take on the Kobbie Mainoo transfer request or the loan request? Do you think he stays at Manchester United past the transfer deadline tomorrow night? Sorry, John. I think you've gone.
I'm so sorry. I didn't want to. While you were talking, I didn't want to hear you clicking my damn stupid. By the way, if you get older, like mechanical keyboards, it was cool when I was a lot younger. I don't know. Now it's just, But anyway, sorry. Let's get back on topic here. Kobbie Mainoo, he's a sensitive one for me because I've openly expressed many times about how much I love Kobbie Mainoo. I think he's one of my favorites right now in this current squad. I get asked quite often, like, who's your favorite player in the squad right now? I think alongside Bruno Fernandes, he's probably up there, and then probably Lenny Yaro and somewhere, along the mix. But it's hard to see, man. It's hard to see. I mean, in an ideal world, Ruben Amorim wins all these games. In an ideal world, we play Kobbie Mainoo alongside Bruno or Casemiro or whoever. In an ideal world, Kobbie Mainoo gets the game time. But I don't blame him for wanting to go and chase game time. Let's be real. He's one of our own. He's an academy lad, and he's Manchester through and through, and I got so much time for him. But at the end of the day, he's got to worry about his priorities. And if his priorities is wanting to represent England at the World Cup, he needs minutes. He needs to showcase his abilities in front of the world so that Thomas Tuchel can see that, not only does he get game time, he's also a quality football that we need in the squad, And he was integral in that Euros run. He's integral for England and for Manchester United. But it doesn't help the fact that all of this pressure right now surrounding the club, surrounding his manager, and now surrounding him, I don't think it does the world any good. And certainly for Kobbie Mainoo, a loan move makes a little bit more sense, because if he goes to a club with let's just say less pressure, more game time, and they're playing a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 where he's, his role is a little bit more clearly defined, then, why not? And I don't put it against him, but the selfish side of me thinks that maybe he should stay. And I think Uncle Rio Ferdinand spoke about it at length too. Yeah, we sound selfish, but there is a selfish side of me that thinks he should stay at this team. If there's anybody that I trust more than anyone else at his age, to be mature and to be, to take the challenge by the scruff of the neck and go, look, I'm here. I'm Manchester through and through. I'm going to fix this. It'd be Kobbie Mainoo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there was a stat that I saw against Burnley. I think Kobbie Mainoo was the only active player in that squad, that match day squad, that was from the United Academy. And as a United fan, I always try to deliver this message that guys, we should calm down a little bit about this academy stuff, because sometimes we put too much on these young kids too fast, and they either go over their heads, or they just they get exposed, or they go through this first sort of challenge and they can't overcome it, whatever it is. I always say, guys, Let's just pump the brakes a little bit, you know. But for Kobbie Mainoo, he's already past that. I think he's already ascended to Super Saiyan 1. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really feel like he's got that qualities to be able to take on this challenge. But again, that's just the selfish side of me. I don't want him to leave, but I wouldn't put it against him if he left, at least for the loan time, for the foreseeable duration of the year, so that he can actually get game time and represent England at the World Cup.
Yeah, I really hope that if it is a loan, there's no option to buy, there's no obligation to buy, because I want to see this kid at Manchester United for years and years to come. It's interesting that you brought that stat up about him being the only academy player in Manchester United squad yesterday, because that record is still ongoing. And if he leaves, then I think the only people within the squad that would be able to keep that record going at the moment would probably be Tyler Fredrickson, because I think it was him and Kobbie in last week's game. And then Tom Heaton, like, we can't forget that he's a Manchester United Academy graduate as well. So I don't know if small little facts like that are included in any manager's contract, that you have to sort of find a way to keep this academy record going, because I mean it's been decades and decades. So I would hate that Ruben Amorim is the guy that's going to sort of break that tradition.
For sure, but like I said, I think we've come to a day and age in this era, this modern era of football, where everything is so high pressured and everything is so. I think the personal connection side and the romantic side of football maybe might have sort of. I wouldn't say faded away. I think it's changed. I think the modern era is very different, and the way that the newer, younger generation consumes football is very different from the eras of our times. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be a bad thing, right? But in this modern era, it's harder to romanticize the elements of academy graduates and all that stuff, because the pressure is on. For Manchester United, the pressure is even greater than ever to get the results. And if there's a squad of players that a manager sees fitting to start over an academy player because he needs the experience and the quality, and he can't take that risk, then so be it. You know what I mean? I'm more of the fan that believes that a manager, his real responsibility, more so than anything else, of course, is to represent the club and understand the culture and the history and the tradition, of course. But if it means getting a result in that moment, especially now more than ever, Ruben Amorim, with the greatest respect, he done got the luxury of time and energy to be worrying about, can he start an academy graduate? This man needs to get results, and he needs them badly. He needs them badly, and like, whether it's stipulated in his contract or whatever, at the end of the day, I would love it. I would love to see Manchester United winning. And I would love it even more if we were winning with our academy graduates like a Kobbie Mainoo.
Yeah, let's hope that this season will be that turning point. Let's just pivot real quickly about the sort of a feeling of toxicity around the club. Like, I mean, we ended the season that way. We started the season really well. We sort of fell back into some bad ways against Fulham. And then yesterday we thought it was going to be a bit of a repeat. The media is playing their part in it, all of the pundits. It's like they're finding every reason to pinpoint everything on Manchester United. We saw yesterday Tottenham, they lost to Bournemouth. Manchester City, they lost today. Arsenal just lost now. But since Tottenham's lost yesterday, we haven't heard anything. Not a peep about them. But I mean, Manchester United, they are the team that brings the headlines. They get the clicks. How do you think it is? I mean, you've spent time around these players during the preseason tours. How do you think that the players deal with the scrutiny, knowing that they play for Manchester United, and if they had played for another club, they wouldn't really be under this much pressure?
I think they deal with it I think they deal with it by addressing it as it comes, and clearly, let's be real. Since last season, would you say that they've dealt with it? If we finish 15th, respectfully, probably not. I would love to sit here and say, yeah, they're fighting the challenge, and they are. They're trying to find the solutions. Of course, don't get me wrong, but 15th is obviously not having dealt with it. Having lost against Tottenham in a Europa League final is not dealing with it. So it is a challenge that I think that the players are trying to overcome and that they are fighting with. And the more and more I go and meet people from all sorts of backgrounds and cultures and people from all around the world, especially non-Man United fans, I can clearly see why they go the extra mile to talk about Manchester United, especially when we're down, because you can clearly tell how much Sir Alex Ferguson and our heroes ruins their childhoods. And I'm not even saying that on a joking level. Like these fans, these rival fans are genuinely upset. Were genuinely upset to see United winning all those years, and now it's amazing for them to see us down. And again, as a sporting rival perspective, I get it completely, right? Because now it feels like crap seeing Liverpool and Arsenal, all these teams doing so well, and me, seeing what we're seeing now. So I can see what like as a kid, it probably hurt even more, like when you go to school and it hit this, you know what I mean? Like it's very different, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, with respect to the toxicity side of things, I think it doesn't help when the opposition fans and the media, they funnel that extra pressure. You know what I mean? With the greatest respect to Tottenham, with the greatest respect to Thomas Frank, like they don't generate that attention that United does. Everybody knows that now. It's not, it's nothing new. But it is frustrating to see when the players that are already having to deal with trying to figure out the answers for our club are having to fight off and ward off extra pressure. Like they need more than two hands. If I have a shield in one hand and a sword on the other to deflect the pressure and to fight our game, our battles, they need extra shields to cover from all of this nonsense, and they only have two hands. It's a really difficult battle to fight, and I feel for like, for example, like I saw a clip of Paul Merson, Jay Bothroyd, like these former Arsenal players and media folks, like talking about how like high pitch, like, hey, yeah, like, why they celebrate like they for Burnley? Like, bro, first of all, calm down, okay? You seem a little animated that we're celebrating a very, very hard fought 3-2 win, getting our first 3 points of the season, right? Calm down. You know what I mean? Like, it's these media folks who know that that United are going to generate attention, to generate engagement and clicks. It's annoying, but it's just part of the game, and I respect I respect that sort of like clash and the bitterness and whatever. But it is sad to see that it's our players and it's our team and us that we have to sort of fight these extra battles in some ways.
Yeah, and I'm extremely grateful that we have a manager like Ruben Amorim as well, that if the journalists ask certain questions about players, he knows how to deal with them. Like the way that he stood up for Altay when the journalist asked him about the question after the Arsenal loss, and he brought up the game in the FA Cup last year about how amazing Altay was in that game. If you compare that to another manager like Erik ten Hag in the previous stint at Man United, where sometimes he wouldn't really stick up for his players as much. He had a very straightforward approach with the media, whereas Ruben, he has this charismatic approach, and he's the player's first guy. Like he'll shield his players from all the noise, and if the players respect him, he respects them. That's, I mean, Alejandro Garnacho is an example of that. The moment he started speaking out against Amorim, against the club, then Amorim had this sort of thinking about him, and I mean now he's not even with the club anymore. But yeah, that's besides my point. Like Amorim, he guards his players, he shields his players, he tries to ensure that they don't get the short end of the stick as much as possible, and I'm just extremely grateful to have him.
I agree 100%. I love the way, one of the things that I love about Ruben Amorim is his his humanity. It's his human elements. Yeah. Like he's very vulnerable and he's open, and I've spoken to so many fans that are very much in disagreement with me when I speak about things like that, because they go, John, you're the manager of Manchester United. You need to carry yourself with this level of eliteness and this like broad shoulders. And like, you're absolutely right. However, right now, we're not that. We're trying to get back to that, and Ruben Amorim knows the pressures and he knows the trials and tribulations, and he himself is a fan of the club. He himself is a fan who's like enduring this heat, and yes, while I do agree with you after that I really appreciate Ruben Amorim, especially when he defends players like Altay Bayindir the way he did, right? For sure. But I also do understand the sentiment when fans think that, managers should call players out sometimes. Managers need to, address certain things. I understand the need to protect quote unquote assets or whatever you want to call players nowadays. But the players are humans too. They make mistakes. They do good things. They do bad things. And when they do bad things, I'm more in the camp that if you do something bad and if you're doing clearly something that we feel is generally wrong, then it's okay to call players out. And again, that's the human side of it. The corporate, maybe the more business savvy answer might be to be a bit more techie with the way you respond to things. But I would appreciate it just as much as Ruben Amorim saying good things. Maybe sometimes if players like, for example, Alejandro Garnacho, everybody has so much high hopes for him, right? And then for disciplinary reasons or whatever reasons, maybe there's things that we don't know exactly what goes on. But from what we can see from an optic standpoint as fans, you can clearly see that there was a disciplinary issue. You can clearly see that has been a big thing. I don't like that. If you don't fall in line and try to get something, we're all on the same boat. We're all rowing, and the storm is on us. The wind is pushing against everything is against us. And if all our hands are fresh like this, it should be blistered. We should be like bleeding. Like we need to be rowing, and all hands on deck needs to be rowing to the same objective. But if one guy goes, nah, I don't like this, so he let go and he's doing this, then he shouldn't be on the boat in the first place. You know what I'm saying? We all need to be pushing for that same objective as a team, united. And if one person, for whatever reason, is not doing that, then I want to see that player or person get called out for it. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I like Ruben Amorim, because sometimes you can clearly see like he's furious, like what he said. He was overly emotional. You can clearly see that he was shocked at the way we played against Grimsby. But who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be? Yeah. That entire squad at Grimsby Town on a yearly average, on a yearly annual salary, I think it was like 3-point-something million. More than half this squad makes more than that. More than half the squad. And look, I hate using money as a reference because it's not the be-all, end-all. But when you put it at the end of the day on paper, for all laid out for all to see, those are the things that make it feel like baffling. And for Ruben Amorim, I could only imagine what he was going through, man. The man looked shell-shocked. He looked destitute. He looked upset. And he was like, look, the players played as if they don't want to. They're clearly sending me a message that they don't want me here. Who the hell? Yeah. Like, that's a hard thing to say. And is that necessarily a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. But I think sometimes I like those things, those humanizing elements, just being vulnerable and just opening up to all of it. Sorry, I kind of went on a little bit of a ramble session, but I just feel like those things are what make Ruben Amorim a little bit more likable, and yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's results. You need to win. I could like him all I want, but if he's not winning, then unfortunately, then it's not going to work out for him. I would love to see him win, but I would also love to see him winning whilst being himself, being this kind of person.
I fully agree. Just talking on that being himself part, I mean, he's stuck very hard to this 3-4-3 system, this formation. He spoke about it as well. He said he will change his system, he will change his formation if it needs to happen during the game. And over the last 20 minutes against Grimsby and yesterday as well, like in the last half an hour, 25 minutes of the game, he had some small, he tinkered quite nicely with his system. When Nusa Mazraoui came on, it seemed like at one point they would be attacking with 4 at the back. It seemed like a 4-3-3 type of formation. So it seems like he is open to some sort of change in terms of formation. And I think that's what was needed in the first place. And that actually just fills me with some more optimism moving forward.
Yeah, I said, so just a real quick on the formation thing. I think a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on the formation thing because clearly from a personnel standpoint, we're just not seeing 3 quote unquote midfielders, although we saw them against Grimsby and Fulham, Burnley. People want to see a bit of a switch because they just think that Kobbie Mainoo, for example, is one of the reasons, the formation is one of the reasons why Kobbie Mainoo is not playing, right? But if you look at the way he plays, if you look at the system and the way that Ruben Amorim really plays his team, he is adaptive and he is, his players do shift differently. So for example, Casemiro, at times he will shift. If you're playing the double midfield, Casemiro in build-up, the wingbacks will push, and Casemiro will tuck slightly next to Matthias de Ligt, right? Like you see these kinds of shifts, and then like you can see that if you're looking at it from an eagle's eyes perspective, an eagle's view perspective, whatever the phrase is, They are playing at times like a back four. They are playing times like a back three. Like there is that fluidity, but it's about the optics and it's about the politics at the end of the day. Sometimes you want to see a little bit of that flexibility, even if he's not, right? Even if he's still playing with a back three. You know, I would love to see a time where he just goes, oh, yo, like imagine he came out to a press conference, right? And he just goes, I listen to my, even if this is full of chat and shit, right? With the, you know, excuse my French, but if he's chatting shit and he comes out, he goes, look, I heard y'all. I'm going to switch to a back four, right? And then he plays, let's just say, he plays his adaptive system where he plays with Kobbie and Casemiro and Bruno is a little bit more central. Whatever it is, just play the game. Like playing the game as in like playing the system, playing the game, playing this politics game where people like get people off your back a little bit. You know what I mean? Because so many people are attacking him for the formation and stuff. And look, I'm one for that. I would love to see Ruben Amorim show even more adaptability and flexibility. I'm not a coach, but I would love to see a little bit more of that, right? You got to play politics if you want that. You know, you have to. Like he's like, look, you know, in conference, he was like, look, if I felt like switching the system would benefit this squad, I would have already done it. But that's great. Like he's right. If he genuinely in his heart felt like switching the system would have done things good, then of course he would have. He's absolutely spot on. But that's the politics of the game. Sometimes you just need to change shit up and like you need to, you know, add a little bit of flavor. I use the analogy losing the battle to win the war. You know, you can't win all the battles at the same time. You can't be fighting on all different fronts. Sometimes you just need to change things up. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need to. Sometimes you need to retreat so that you can win in other areas. And I think that's where Ruben Amorim needs to play the politics a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? I hate that stuff. I don't know how to do it. You know, I'm very face value. And that's why sometimes Jimmy tells me all the time, like, oh, your life is so good. Like, what, you know, he makes fun of me because he says, I don't know how to do that stuff. He called me stupid. And I'm okay with that. But he's the manager of Manchester United. I'm just some schmuck here in Queens, New York. You know, I would like to see him play a little bit, make his life a little bit easier for the long term, at least.
Yeah, and hopefully he's going to be here. He wants to be here for 20 years. Hopefully we get to see him as much as possible moving forward. We are going to switch up real quick to the transfer window. So this episode is being recorded on a Sunday night here in South Africa. So there's just about a day and 2 hours left in the transfer window. How have you viewed Manchester United's window thus far, incomings and outgoings?
I'm very happy with what we've seen, with what we've done so far. I think some people are like goldfish, with the greatest respect. I think some people's memories need to be like, we need to remember, like up until a few months ago, United fans were in full force enraged because all the news was like, we can't spend money. We don't know how we're going to spend money. We need to sell players to even spend a little bit. Like everybody was like drawing up their own conclusions. And again, I want to emphasize that rightly so, because that was what was being reported at the time. But I was constantly screaming and echoing the sentiments of a United fan that was already accepting of our circumstances, telling people that, look, even Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Ruben Amorim themselves came out into the public, sat down with Gary Neville, interviewed for an hour about how bad things are. It's bad when your owner comes out and says it's bad. That's bad. I've been in corporate. I've been in here for a minute. It don't matter how bad it is. If it's like, they'll do whatever it takes to sugarcoat it and be like, oh, you know, we're working on things. We're improving. If somebody goes, is it bad? Corporate answers, we're improving. We're doing things better. Sir Jim Ratcliffe the man came out and said, this is bad. When that happens, you know it's bad, right? And I've seen so many progressive things. And look, I don't agree necessarily with all the decisions that they made, and it sometimes upsets me at some of the decisions. But overall, they're doing the right things in my view, and they're trying to fix things, right? And I said to people, it's going to take time. We got to sell the players that don't even want to be here. We got to sell players that want to be here but maybe shouldn't be here. We got to refix this squad. Right? We got to redo a lot of things, and that takes time. It's so much easier to open your wallet and drop $1,000 than to take that item that you just bought for $1,000, used it, and then it had a wear and tear, and try to sell it back to somebody. You know? What if I use this as my urinal can? Although it's a cup, if its function is to drink water out of it, but I've been using it to pee in it, to try and sell it back. Who the hell is going to want to buy it back? You know what I'm saying? Like it makes life that much easier to sell things than to buy things. Right now, United are trying to sell these players that don't want to be here. And I'm sorry, or maybe I shouldn't have used that example as a reference, because I'm not saying that, peeing in a cup is whatever, like is the right analogy here. But my point is that it's so much easier to buy than to sell. And for this club, they're trying to sell these players, and we're trying to generate money. It's not going to happen in one transfer window. It's not going to happen in two. It's certainly, I would love it if it happened in three, but it's going to take time. So you got to lower that expectation and be patient. And everybody buying Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo, in my view, was already exceeding expectation. And then buying Benjamin Šeško is already exceeding expectations, because that's your entire starting front three replaced in one transfer window. That speaks volumes to the conviction, right? Last season, one of the big problems was chance creation and goals, right? Goals obviously having much more of an impact. We couldn't score goals. We couldn't score. Obviously there's all these problems with getting up to the build up and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, that ball wasn't in the back of the opposition net. And we signed two players, Premier League proven, that are excellent at putting that thing in the back of the net. And Benjamin Šeško, a young player that has potential. Like, to me, that's exceeding expectations. If we sign two goalkeepers in Senne Lammens, and at this moment we're linked with Emi Martinez, great. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Emi Martinez, but if he's going to be an absolute bastard, who he's always been, for whether it be for Argentino or for Aston Villa or whoever, but now he's going to be our bastard, then I'll welcome it. If he's his last season was bad, it wasn't good. He was making constant errors and whatnot. But if he can rediscover his form and be somewhat of an important figure at this club, then so be it. I'll welcome it. I'll always give him a chance, and that's already great. So we're addressing different issues, or at least trying to tackle these issues. Why not? Then I should be proud. I should be happy with this transfer window. If we add in a Balebo or an Adam Warren, holy cannoli. But I don't necessarily think that can happen. And we should accept that, because it's already been insanely crazy as is,
Yeah, I think the last I saw today was, I think it was Fabrizio saying that United are looking at a loan midfielder because they still want to go in for Belieber next year. So they're looking at Conor Gallagher at the moment, which I don't know. What are your thoughts on that one? Because for me, I would rather than keep Kobbie Mainoo instead.
Yeah, I would much rather keep Kobbie Mainoo. I think Conor Gallagher is a decent player. I'm, with the greatest respect, I'm not necessarily a big fan of him. I think he got overhyped a little bit. You saw in the Euros how Gareth Southgate relied on him more than he did Kobbie Mainoo, especially in those group stages, and like leading up to the fact that him realizing, having this like, oh my God, Kobbie Mainoo's way better. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not to throw shade against Conor Gallagher, but I would much rather keep Kobbie Mainoo than bring in Conor Gallagher. Although Conor Gallagher does have the legs and the robustness that is required in midfield, and if he can stay fit, then sure, then why not? You know what I mean? Then if we're gonna bring him and it's a loan deal and we can get a good price for him, where like we're not covering entire wages or something, if we can get him from a great deal, then sure, right? Then I'll welcome it, because we need hands on deck. We need extra hands, right? But But if you gave me an option where it's like keep Kobbie Mainoo or sell or bring Conor Gallagher and let Kobbie Mainoo go, of course I'm keeping Kobbie Mainoo 20 times out of 10.
100%. And what you mentioned, Senne Lammens and Emi Martinez. So Mike McGrath said that United are close to the Lammens deal. Fabrizio has said that United are close to the Martinez deal in the event that Lammens doesn't materialize. Which camp are you sitting in? Are you going for the more experienced camp, or are you going for high ceiling, lots of potential? This kid is going to be here for many years to come.
Honestly, at this point in time, I would like to see both come in. I don't know if I'm cheating your answer here, but I would like to see both come in, because Alti Bayindir and Andre Onana, I think they've both experienced such sort of like disappointingly like, I don't want to use the word shocking, but it has been shocking to some extent, and it has been disappointing to some extent. I think you can't sugarcoat that. And if both of your keepers are going through it, it is not a good sign. Even in the past, when we first brought in David De Gea, when there were so many question marks, even Gary Neville in his debut year at Sky Sports roasting David De Gea for his shy, small body movements when he needs to make himself look big. afraid to come out and claim the ball, challenge the ball. Like those are the things that made Sir Alex Ferguson think about David De Gea, although he brought him. And then, there was conversations about, can we start Anders Lindegaard at the time? There was conversations even in the past, like you need to have a healthy keeping situation. That's a standard without a doubt. Gary Neville talks about how he thinks goalkeeper is one of the most toughest positions at Manchester United. And I agree with him. I agree 100%. And for that reason alone, if Tom Heaton, for some reason or another, is just not going to be playing that many games, then we need to bring in two. One to start, one to compete. If we're in a situation where we have 4 goalkeepers and they're training all 4, that's mad competition. Emi Martinez could be like, yo, I'm the old dog, but don't disrespect me. I'm a dog. I'm coming in. I'm trying to bring it back. I still got many years left in me. I'm going to compete for this position. Senna Lamens, I'm young. I'm flying. Let me play in this position. Alti Bindir, oh shoot. Me and Andre were the 2 dogs with Tom Heaton, and all of a sudden we brought in 2. Nah, I'm not letting that happen. F all this noise. I'm going to try and bounce back. Something, there's got to be something to spark a resurgence, a revitalization. That's a renaissance in itself. If we bring in 2 keepers to compete with all these keepers, I would love to see that. You know what I mean? Sometimes competition, if done correctly, can breed the right, healthy kind of excellence. And I think that would breed that.
And that's something, just to pivot away from the goalkeeper situation, that's something that I thought would have happened with the number 9 spot as well. I am probably the biggest Rasmus Højlund fan, and I'm so super sad to see him go, and with an obligation attached to it as well. I really thought that if he had stayed at Manchester United, there would have been this healthy competition for that number 9 spot.
Yeah.
And he would have finally had the opportunity to receive proper service from Mbeumo, from Matheus Cunha as well, and unfortunately that didn't happen.
No, and I'm sad to see him go as well, because I had very high hopes for Rasmus Højlund. But I do understand why maybe they think it is best for him to move on, whether it's a quality issue or not. I'm sure a lot of people will agree it is a quality thing, but at the end of the day, I think, quote unquote, there's been irreversible damage done, not just to the player and the club, but just to the person almost that is Rasmus in some ways. And I feel bad for him, but the amount of abuse that he's received is just, I would rather see him move on for that reason alone, So, I'm not here to defend him just purely because he's a good guy. And, at the end of the day, if he's not producing, then he's not producing. And I think sometimes he makes it, as much as sometimes I think it's a tactical thing, I also think he doesn't make it easy on himself at times. And those are the complexities as to why I think as much as I would love to see him stay, I understand full-heartedly why he needs to leave, for himself and for the club. I said it before, man, when I was on that podcast with Brian Robson and Dennis Irwin. I was adamant that we needed to sign 2 strikers, an experienced one and a young one. We needed a Harry Kane and a Rasmus Højlund, but instead we brought in a Rasmus Højlund and dumped all this pressure on him. Gary Neville thinks goalkeeping is the highest pressure. I think it is high, but for me, the captain and the striker for Manchester United is the highest pressure. Because goal scoring is one of the most difficult things you can do as a footballer. That's where they get paid the most. And if you're going to score goals, and if you're going to play for Manchester United to try and score goals, that's a lot of additional levels of pressure. And I think Rasmus Højlund, it's unfair on him, but that's just sometimes the way the cookie crumbles, and that's sometimes just the way football is. And I just wish him all the best, for real. I think there's a good guy and a talented footballer there.
Yeah, he's going to be reunited with Scott McTominay, getting some service from Kevin De Bruyne. So I think he's going to be just fine over at Napoli. As we leave that transfer window segment, we will be ending off with a quick reflection on your journey thus far as a content creator. I mean, you started all the way back as content creating. You managed to get a couple of segments on Full-Time Devils. That's where I think majority of us ended up seeing you in the beginning. You just moved and leveled up year after year. You've been going on pre-season tours whenever United comes around. You were at the FIFA Club World Cup as well. I just saw a clip of you playing EAFC at Yankee Stadium. So, dude, how many times do you pinch yourself?
Quite a lot, man. Especially the past few years. I can't even tell you how many times I've sat down with Jimmy, just staring off into the distance, like, "Yo, what the hell? This is crazy," And it's it's quite emotional, if I'm being honest with you. I've been doing this for over 11 years, and the pinch me moments are it's not even pinch me. Like, I need people to slap me because I'm like, it feels like a dream. I can't even tell you how many times the past few months I've cried just looking back at everything. I get choked up just talking about it now. Um Look, I think sometimes content creators get I think we get wrong. I think sometimes we don't get painted in a nice way sometimes because, we get kind of clumped into the same section of, creators as like quote unquote influencers that do all these things and whatever. But for me, my journey has always been about trying to express my creativity and to talk about football and the club that I love with everything in my heart. Manchester United, Ji-sung Park, all of these things, they've saved me, and my community and everything related to what I do. It saved me. It's dragged me out of dark places. It's kept me, it's spotlighted me into these beautiful moments, and everything about it has made my life feel that much more incredible. And the past 2 months, you mentioned, the Club World Cup, the preseason tours, like it's been a dream come true moment, and it feels, my friends remind me a lot. Nowadays my friends, we're all old, we have kids and whatever, so I go to these like you know these functions with my friends where I haven't seen them in a while, and they're all talking to me about like, yo, I saw this and this and this, like, you work so freaking hard to get to this point, man, like, I'm so happy for you. And like, it definitely feels very emotional. It feels extremely, so much like a blessing, and I'm eternally grateful. I'm grateful to everybody that supported me throughout the years. I can't even tell you how many times I'm still walking down the street and sometimes I feel like, yo, you're that guy from Full Time Devils. You remember that video where you did so and so and so? And I'm like, damn, you actually did watch me from back then. That's crazy. These things is just insane. It's quite literally a dream come true. Sometimes I step back and think like, whoa, is this even real? And that feeling is something that I can't put into words really. It's a beautiful emotional thing, and I'm super grateful to everybody.
And we are super grateful to you as well. I mean, like, you don't have to come on our show every time I send you a message and ask you if you're available. So you've mentioned this a couple of times on your own channel, and you say that you are in the position, you have the platform that you do, and you love giving back. And I just want to say, like, from all of us here at Sportycast, we do appreciate every time you make some time for us. We see it and we acknowledge it, and we love what you are doing. We are extremely proud and supportive of everything that you have achieved and everything that you've done so far. And I mean, this is only the beginning, man. Like, there's still mountains and mountains for you to climb, and we cannot wait to see what you end up doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And on that note, we are going to wrap up this episode. So if there's anything that you have coming up, anything that you'd like to plug, anything that you have going on, let the guys know.
Um, uh, there's so much going on, but the next up on my agenda right now is I'm going to be traveling to to Nashville, Tennessee, here in America, to watch South Korea take on Mexico in a friendly. I would love to see people there. I would love to see familiar faces, not familiar faces. I want to love to meet new people. I think international friendlies, when we're sitting at home, you're like, why do they have to go play friendlies? But it's an opportunity for national teams to go find fans from different parts of the world. For example, like myself, it would cost me an arm and a leg to fly to South Korea to watch them play. But if they're coming here, it costs only a few $100s for me to fly to Nashville. When in comparison to flying to Korea, that's this compared to this. So for me, it's a dream come true moment, and I finally get to watch my national team play after all these years. So it's going to be another emotional moment for me once again. I'm probably going to cry once again. Probably going to have another pinch me moment once again. But if you guys are going to be out there, that'll be great to see you guys. Or if I make any content about that journey, it'd be I greatly appreciate it if you got to watch it.
Nice one. I mean, We are going to put everything in the universe, all the good vibes in the universe, so that Park Ji-sung will be there at the stadium as well. Uh, let's make it happen, guys. Let's make that happen, and John can finally get his wish to meet Park Ji-sung in real life, shake his hand, and yeah, we see in your background over there as well, Kang Lee. Um, uh, I love that entire story of how you got that frame as well. So if you want to check that out, head over to John's channel at GoodVibesJohn. So much content on the daily. The dude keeps on cooking. I am at AF Parker 642 on all social media platforms. We are at Sportycast on all social media platforms. We do not only cover football or soccer on our social media platform. We do all sports: cricket, rugby, hockey, NBA, NFL, MLB, you name it. We got it covered. So yeah, give us a follow. Smash the like button on this. Smash the subscribe button on this channel if you have not already. Our 343 show will be back on Wednesday night, 7 p.m. South African time. So pop into the live chat, come join us. It'll probably be a transfer window retrospective about the best and worst deals of the window. But until then, I am AF. Thank you so much, John, once again, for taking the time out for us. We do appreciate it. But that's all from us. Peace.